So welcome back to another video on the channel. In this video, I'm going to be detailing my personal outbound e-commerce client acquisition funnel. I'm really just going to be breaking down absolutely everything from the email flows that we use in terms of our follow-up emails, our initial email, as well as our retargeting methods with Loom videos, as well as personal messages, as well as actually Facebook retargeting, actually running Facebook ads to the prospects from, our booked call method, how we get physical calls booked, what we do with the leads that we hop on sales calls with, where do they go if they're, sometimes leads don't say yes there and then, but they're also not entirely turned off from the idea of bringing you on board as an agency. So what do you do with those leads? I'm really just going to be breaking down our entire outbound client acquisition process. As always, guys, just before we jump into the video, make sure you go ahead, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel. Massively helps out the YouTube algorithm, and this video is going to be massively worth that like as well because it's going to be seriously valuable. So go ahead and do that, and let's jump into the video. So here we go. Now, just before I do jump into it, I do need to pre-frame this by saying I apologize for my terrible handwriting. It's actually super hard to write on a computer like whiteboard with just like a trackpad thing. So just want to pre-frame with that, but let's get into it. So it is quite of a detailed process. Now, obviously like everything, it is really a funnel at the end of the day. So obviously down here, this is a client. So obviously, as I said, at the bottom, that's the client. But there is a process that we go through to get a client out at the bottom. Now, so at the very top, we've got just leads, right? These are just all e-commerce brands. Okay, so we've got the leads at the top, but now the thing is with e-commerce, because the barrier to entry is so low, right? Kind of anybody can just start an e-com brand. We need to make sure that we're not reaching out to leads, rather we are reaching out to qualified leads. Okay, so we're reaching out to qualified leads. If you're not reaching out to qualified leads, it doesn't matter what funnel you take somebody through. Either they just won't be able to afford you a service fee, or maybe they do come on board as a client, but because you haven't qualified them, their website's terrible, their product's terrible, that's just naturally going to mean that you won't be able to get them results. It doesn't matter at the end of the day how good of a marketer you are or a media buyer you are. You won't be able to get every single brand results if their website doesn't convert, if their product just doesn't have a market, if there's just not a market there for their product, etc. So you need to weed out those clients, and that's where we do that at the qualified section, right? So things of, qualifying a client consists of ensuring they've got a solid social foundation, that they've got a good following on, also things such as ensuring that they've got great content on their Instagram page, for example, as well, is super important, because what will happen is that the content that's on their Instagram page will most likely be the exact same type of content, if not the exact same content that you use or that you are able to use for the ads, right? And as you guys know, moving forward with Facebook ads, the most important factor to successful advertising is the copy and the creative. So if the creative, meaning the content, isn't good, then again, it's going to be very hard for you to get good results. So that's the first thing: qualified clients, qualified leads. What we do, once we've got our qualified leads, we then put them into Pipedrive, and we just put them into kind of like a leading column, right? Which is basically where we just inject all of the qualified leads. And then from that point onwards, we take them through our outreach process. And this is how that looks. So we take them through our email outreach process, and that consists of 3 emails: email 1, 2, and 3. So email 1, so this first one right here, is basically consists of us introducing ourselves, who we are, what we do. And the reason I'm saying we is because, I've actually got an appointment setting team now. So it's not just me reaching out to people anymore. It's actually a team. So they kind of structure things slightly different. They don't say like, I'm the founder / CEO of agency name. Rather, they say that they're a senior account advisor. And then from there, they say that they basically work for Bax Consulting, which is a marketing agency. And that's what, that's kind of how that works. But that's really what email 1 consists of: introducing who we are, what we do, and then from there we pitch a Loom, which is basically, the way that we go about it is a case study, but at the end of the day, it's just a Loom video. And if you actually go back and watch my previous day in the life video, week, whatever you want to call it, I actually show you exactly how I structure those Loom videos that we send out. And basically the premise is to get somebody to reach out, respond to that email 1 by saying, yes, they're interested in seeing the case study. And then from there, as I mentioned, we'll go ahead and send them over a Loom, whether it's myself or one of the team members. And then within that Loom video, we basically pitch the call. So we actually don't ask for the call straight up. Now, something else that we do is, obviously email 1 is exactly what I've just mentioned. But the thing is, if they didn't respond, if they, if they opened the email but they didn't actually respond, they didn't, show interest or whatever, then the reason that is because the approach that we took didn't resonate with them, right? If it resonated with them, they would, they would have shown interest. They would have been like, yep, let's go, let's do it. But they didn't. And so what that shows you and what that basically tells you is that the approach that you took to get to your CTA, in my case, it's a Loom video or a case study, the approach that I took in email 1 didn't resonate. So what I ought to do in email 2 and email 3 is take a different approach, kind of split test, right? Take a different approach to get to the same end CTA, but you need to go about it in a different way, because that different approach that you take, basically what the goal is by taking a different approach is to make it resonate, right? So that's what we basically do in email 2 and email 3. Again, I apologize for the mess, but I hope this is coming across in a clear and concise way, right? So that's basically the 3-part email outreach process. Email 1, 2, and 3, it's just taking different approaches to the same end CTA. Now, one thing that I do want to stress is that what you want to do with email 2 and email 3 is you actually want to reply to email 1. Now, obviously, this probably goes without saying, but if you get a response, then you don't send email 2 and email 3, right? Probably goes without saying. But as I mentioned, if you didn't get a response, then what you want to do is you want to reply to the previous email. Basically, reply to email 1 every time. What this does is it helps with email deliverability, because you're not making a new conversation that you're not getting a response to. So you're just responding in the same thread. So it helps with email deliverability, and it also helps refresh the client's mind as well, because email 1 may get sent. That's where you introduce yourself, what you do, and they may read it and then they may just bounce for whatever reason. But then if you send email 2 in a separate email, they may forget who you are. Guys, you need to realize that these e-commerce owners are very, very busy. They've got a lot on their plate. They're probably not going to remember exactly who you are. So by you sending email 2, you're obviously not going to reintroduce yourself, but then you may also run the risk of them not remembering who you are. So it's like, who's this person? And then they're definitely not going to respond to you, right? So you need to you need to reply to the original email 1, because they can always just scroll up. They don't need to look around or anything like that, because email 1 is literally right there in their face, and they reread email 1 like, oh, it's this person. Yeah, okay, this actually sounds like something I need. They respond, or they, book in a call, or whatever it is that your CTA is. Hope that makes sense. That's how you want to go about your email outreach. So as you can see, I've just done this little bit of another bit of a diagram, and this is really just going through a couple kind of like, analytical, and this is just really going through a couple analytical points of email outreach. So obviously email outreach, the main concept of it is what you're writing in the email. There's these things that I'm going to go through here in a minute, but if what you're writing in the email, the actual email body, if that isn't compelling, if that isn't hitting any pain points, then it kind of doesn't matter about, how much you focus on the open rate or reply rate, or, those more, as I say, it doesn't matter if you focus on the analytical side of email outreach, if, as I mentioned, if your email body is just not there. So you need to make sure that's on point. But I do want to go through a couple pieces of data that you need to be looking out for and how you can action on it. So basically there's three sections of data to email outreach. As you can see here, there's open rate, there's reply rate, and there's booked rate, or BCR, which will be booked call rate, right? 3 points. That's literally it. There's nothing else to it. There's delivered, your deliverability, but I'm not going to go through that in this video because that's a whole nother topic, and yeah, it's just a lot there. But once your deliverability is on point, there's 3 things: open rate, reply rate, booked rate. Now, what you must do, what you have to do, is you must focus on the top. As you see this arrow, you must focus on the top and work your way down. Now, what do I mean by this? Well, what I mean is that don't focus on getting the best booked call rate before you focus on your open rate. Okay, because what you want to be doing is you want to inject people into the funnel. You want to get as many people into the funnel. There's no point, having an open rate of like 10%, but you're focusing all of your time and effort on the booked call rate. Because if you can just get a better open rate, then you're going to be getting more juice out of your squeeze. It's very, very similar to Facebook ads. You don't want to be focused on the lower funnel metrics such as ROAS and whatnot when your CTR, right, which would be like kind of similar to open rate in this scenario, when your CTR is like a 0.1%. There's no point focusing on, like I say, getting the best ROAS when your CTR is, 0.1%. There's no point. You need to get that CTR to a 2% and above, ideally for ecom. It's the same thing here. Open rate. If your open rate is below 50%, you need to work on getting it higher. Ideally, you want your open rate to be between 70 and 80%. Okay, so focus on that first before you look at reply rate, before you look at booked call rate. And the same thing for reply rate. If you're getting no replies, you're getting no interest, focus on that. Once you've got your 70 to 80% open rate, right? 70 to 80% open rate, then look at your reply rate, then look at your booked call rate. That's how you're going to be able to focus on the data side of it effectively and actually get better results as you increase your analytics and whatnot. Okay, I hope that makes sense. That's how you want to go about it. I wanted to make sure that I cover that because that's super important. Don't waste your time on your booked call rate if your open rate is 10% or 20%, for example. Really anything below 50%. So again, as you can tell by my amazing writing, next what we've got in the funnel is respective column. Okay, so what's going to happen is you're going to be injecting a lot of people into your outreach flow, into your outreach system. As I say, this is exactly what we do. We inject a lot of people, a lot of qualified leads. We then take each and every one of those qualified leads through that email process, right? And obviously there's a couple subsections of that email outreach process, such as the emails themselves, the data side of it, as you can see down the bottom left-hand side and whatnot. What will happen after that email outreach process is one of four things. One of four things will happen. The prospect will either book a call. The prospect will either say no. The third thing that they may do is they may potentially say, circle back with me in whatever amount of days or time or months or whatever. You know, that's something that happens a lot. And they're really warm, qualified leads because, again, guys, you need to understand just because somebody says, can you reach out to me next month or whatever, may not mean that they're pushing you off. They may not, that may have every intention of hopping on a call with you. It's just genuinely at this moment in time, they cannot take on another thing. There's a huge sale, there's this or that, whatever. A lot of the times, as I say, you'll find that people do say that, circle back with me next quarter, circle back with me in 6 months, circle back with me next week, for example, whatever it is, they may say something like that. Or the fourth one that they may say is they may actually just be really rude. They may tell you to, F off. They may say, take me off your off your list or whatever. That's something else that they may say, right? Usually it's going to be one of those four things. Now, obviously there's a myriad of different things that they could say, but those four categories really are the main categories. Yes, they've booked a call. No, we're not interested right now. Maybe we're okay. We're working with an agency or whatever it is. They may tell you specifically to reach out to them in a certain time frame, or they may be quite rude and just tell you some sort of rude thing, right? One of those four things will happen. Now, what you want to do is you want to put the lead in the respective column, okay? Because as I mentioned, in Pipedrive, you want to have certain columns set up. And so you want to have your email outreach process. And then at the end, you want to have those four columns. Yes, blah, 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 right? Whatever it is. Warm, which would be circle back with me. Not interested would just be those who just say no, we're working with an agency or whatever. And then you can have another one, which just basically is just delete leads or whatever, right? Now, you may be asking me right now, why wouldn't you just delete those leads? Why do you want to still store them within Pipedrive? Well, the thing is that you want to keep them in your Pipedrive ecosystem so that you don't hit them up again, right? Because if you do, then it can just cause all sorts of problems. And you want to just make sure that you know who you've reached out to, and you know that, okay, yeah, I have reached out to this brand before. Okay, where are they in those columns, right? It's just good to keep them in the ecosystem. And it also massively helps as well, as those of you in the high level program, you guys know, it helps once you start bringing on a team. And as I say, when you bring on a team of appointment setters, a lot of people are going to be adding a lot of qualified leads in there. You don't want to have duplicates. You don't want to be reaching out to loads of brands at the same time, like 5, 6, 7 times in different, with different people and scripts, and it just gets messy. You want to keep them all in the pipeline, right? So as I say, after the email outreach, you want to drop the clients in the respective column. And we're actually going to be circling back to these four columns. We're actually going to be leveraging those four columns here in a minute as well. So make sure you keep watching because it will all make a lot more sense nearer the end. So after that, you're going to have booked call, right? So obviously one of those columns was those who actually booked on a call, whether it was from your Loom video that you sent out, whether you were just asking directly for the call, whatever it is, whatever your CTA is, your method of getting to the call, you will have people booking in a call with you. So on that book call though, what you want to do, there's a section before, there's a section from once somebody's booked in a call and they've actually got on the call with you. There's a gap. And what we want to be doing in that gap is we want to be getting the prospect excited for the call. Now, how do you go about that? So here are just a couple ways that you can basically get your prospects super excited for the call. The reason that we want to do that, maybe that's a question you're asking right now, like, why do we want to get prospects excited for the call? Well, first things first, it's just naturally going to help pre-frame the call. And when they get on the call, they're going to not only see you as an expert, but they're going to feel a lot more, they're just going to be, essentially what it's going to do is it's going to help conversion rates, right? Because if they've kind of been indoctrinated through this process before the call, and they've also been warmed up as well, it's going to help conversion rates on the call. But something else, and this is the biggest reason why I love to get prospects excited for the call, is because it massively decreases no-show rates. One thing that can happen is that, you may be getting calls booked, but one thing that always happens is that not actually every client that books in a call hops on the actual call, right? They may bounce, they may do this and that or whatever. Now, one thing, and the most common way to combat that issue is to, as I say, now, a really good way and most common way to combat that issue is to send reminders. You can do that through Calendly or Acuity. You can send SMS reminders as well. You can get them to plug it into their iPhone calendar and they'll get a notification 10 minutes before, all that type of stuff. But another really good way is to get them excited. The way that you do that is by implementing one of these three things. Now, if you're doing outbound prospecting, outbound outreach, these last two are probably going to be the most common, okay? However, three things that you can do, there's obviously a lot more, but email funnel, success video, blast results. So email funnel is going to be more effective for paid traffic because you can set it up through Zapier, where as soon as they book in a call, they just naturally go through into another email funnel, and then that automatically sends them emails and whatnot, gets them excited, and that does the touch points for you. That kind of sends the results, sends this and that to them, whatever it is that you want to show them. That gets them excited for the call alone. You can set it up a lot more automatically. However, a really easy win that you can do is a success video. Now, this is the most common one, and this is what I highly recommend you do. And look, you don't even need something like ClickFunnels to do this. You can literally just redirect them to a YouTube video, for example, where you can just upload it on there for free, and you just go through results in that video, and you go through kind of who you are. You give them a bit more background on your agency, because at the end of the day, this is a complete stranger, okay? So if you can warm them up, if you can have these multiple touch points with them, show them past results, show them what you can do, it's going to massively help conversion rates. And as I say, it's also going to massively decrease no-show rates. And as I say, the last thing there is just blast results. That's something you can do. You can actually tie these two in together as well. You can just blast results in that success video as well. Okay, so that's what you want to be doing. That's what you want to be doing. Whoa. That's what you want to be doing in that gap, okay? From once they've booked in a call and actually hopped on the call, in that gap, you want to be just nurturing them, getting them excited for the call. However you want to go about that, there's a couple ways to do it. And actually, just before we move on to the next point, what we personally do, what I've personally got set up right now is both an email funnel, okay? So they get emails, and I've got a success video on my confirmation page, all right? So that's what we do. And obviously within that email, we do it within the email funnel. I've basically just indoctrinated that blasting results section into the email funnel. So that's how I go about it. As I say, I implement it all, but what you can do is just do the success video while you're starting out. And then once you've, got a bit of money behind you, you can start to set up the email funnel through something like ActiveCampaign, etc. Again, for those of you in the high level program, obviously I give you all those emails anyway, and that entire email funnel kind of flow, let's say. So once that happens, that section between booked call and actually hopping on the call, well, then you've got the physical call, right? And on the call, that's where we then take them through sales process. Now, one thing, or a script sales process, right? One thing that I've started to do recently, and it's been doing very well, is dramatically changing up the sales call depending on the type of lead. Okay. Now, what I mean by this is that obviously for those of you in the quantum agency program, you guys know we have two types of leads, right? We've got outbound, we've got inbound. The way that we get outbound clients and calls and whatnot is through this exact process that I'm discussing in this video. Now, the way that we go about getting inbound clients is by building a Facebook personal brand. Okay. So that's what we discuss in the quantum agency program. In the higher level program, obviously we go through paid traffic for your own agency, and that's a whole nother monster. But either way, there's two types of traffic, outbound and inbound. So what you want to be doing on the call is you want to be altering your sales process depending on whether they're outbound or inbound. A perfect example of this, okay, is one of my most recent videos. It's like a live sales call, 6K per month client close, whatever it is, right? Something along those lines. That video shows you a perfect example of what an inbound sales call looks like. I'm basically coming from a pure point of leverage, and that's what you want to be doing for those inbound calls. You want to be coming from a pure point of leverage. The reason it's an inbound lead is because they've reached out to you, they've initiated this, partnership potentially, so you know that they want to work with you. So you need to leverage that. You need to make the most of that. And so you want to come from a point of leverage. And again, I'm not going to go into that in this video. Go and watch that other video. It will show you exactly what I mean. Whereas outbound, okay, you need to do a lot more sales. You need to physically sell the client because you've reached out to them at the end of the day. So you need to sell them on why they should become a client. And what you also want on these calls is around a 40 to 60% close rate from, that's an average from inbound and outbound leads. Okay? Just an average from all of your sales calls, you want around a 40 to 60% close rate, okay? If you're not having that, then it could be because of a few problems. Probably, I would say the most common two problems that it could be is non-qualified leads and you're not showing enough value. Clients or prospects at that point just don't see the value in working with you. So that's probably the two most common reasons why your close rate would be severely below that 40 to 60% range, okay? If you're above it, it could, you could look at that as like, I'm above it, so I'm doing amazingly well. I don't look at it like that though. I look at it that you need to be charging higher if you're above it. Okay, that's kind of how I look at it. Like if you're like at 100% close rate, like you're just not charging enough. Like that could be the reason. And I could be anybody could be at 100% close rate if you're charging clients $100 a month, right? Like, if we're being more realistic, if you're charging $1,000 a month, you could very, very easily be at 100% close rate. Yet you've got 19 clients and you're only at like 19,000 a month, right? That's just not good, So I would look at it. If you're above that, I would start to see if you can, where you can charge more. Maybe do your same amount that you're charging, but slap on a 15% ROAS deal at the end of it, and then at that point you'll start to make a severe amount more per client and all that type of stuff. So ideally, sweet spot, 40 to 60% close rate for the call. So obviously at that point, you've got call and it could go straight to the client. That's obviously what we want. We want that one call close. I know a lot of people do like a 2 call close, maybe a 3 call close, but there's just no need. You're right. Like I kind of, maybe it works really well for other people. I know it does work well for other people, but for me, I don't see the reason that you need a 2, 3, 4, 5 call close, to be honest, just because I don't do that. I do a 1 call close. I try, sometimes obviously there's going to be instances where there is a 2nd call, maybe even a 3rd call, but I always shoot for the 1 call close and it's more than enough. It's more than fine. So that's that's the best instance to happen is you just close the client there and then. If not though, you want to go to this last and final section, which is follow up. Guys, this is a section that a lot of people just, they just neglect. They have the call, they do, for example, they won't close the client and then they'll just go straight back up to qualified leads and try and find another client. Yet they forget about that. They may have said no there and then, but that doesn't mean to say that they're not interested entirely, right? Sometimes, and quite a lot of the times, if a client says no, right, if you get to the end of a sales call with a client, well, that that they're qualified, that they can probably afford your service as well. So if they said no at that point, then there's other problems that need to be addressed. And so if you can address those problems in your follow-up, they're more than likely going to become a client. And it's that kind of pool of people that you're going to get your highest ROAS from, if you like, right? You're going to get the highest ROAS from those people because they know exactly who you are. They've met you. You guys have spoke. And You know, it's basically like the retargeting audiences within Facebook. Retargeting audiences always warrant a higher ROAS. It's the same thing here. You're going to get your biggest return from that pool of people, and you don't neglect it by following up. Now, how do you go about following up? Well, I would recommend following up probably 2 to 4 weekly, right? You don't want to be doing it weekly. That would just be too much. You'll probably turn them away. I would probably go 4 weekly, depending on, or monthly. You know, that's kind of what I do for most clients. Sometimes, you know, there's different situations where you know they're just on the edge, but there's another reason why they can't. Maybe literally this week they've got a huge launch and they want to get that out of the way. Then they want to move forward. Whatever it is, you want to, it's a slightly more case by case, but I wouldn't go anything sooner than, or a higher frequency than 2 or bi-weekly. But for the most part, just do a monthly follow-up. Now, how do you go about following up? Well, you can just send over Loom videos. That's the best one. I love doing Loom videos because it gets your personality across, it gets your tone across, it shows that you're excited, that you're really wanting to bring them on board. It's just kind of harder to get that across in an email. That said, you could do an email. What you could also do is inject them into an email, you know, like an email list, and you kind of just blast that email list with like weekly client wins, results that you've gotten, maybe like some sort of article that you found really interesting about Facebook ads and how powerful they are and why it's the most important platform to be on and really master moving forward because of X, Y, and Z. Whatever it is, that's another way that you could follow up with them and just have that touch point. Another thing that you could do is actually inject them into a Facebook retargeting audience. Now, this retargeting audience, don't think that like, oh, I can't run ads because, you know, I've not got any money, for example, I can't afford it. Well, you actually don't want to be spending too much on that retargeting audience, because what will happen if you do, your frequency will be like 100 and, you know, it just won't be as effective, right? You literally want to be spending like, I'd probably say like $1 a day max, probably around that point. You know, and that will basically give that touch point kind of indirectly. So you're not actually physically reaching out saying, hey, James, how are you? Do you want to move forward yet or whatever? You know, it's very subtle. You're just in their feed every now and then. You just pop up in their feed, right? That's just going to keep you in the back of their mind. They'll keep thinking about you almost indirectly. And then when it does come to that point of them like, okay, I want to move forward with an agency, you'll be the first one to kind of come up in their head because you've had those touch points with them across Instagram, Facebook, etc. So this really is the entire funnel. Now, it does go a lot more granular at each stage. For example, the email outreach section, you know, you do have your open rates, your reply rates, your book rates. And then from there is further things that you can do to actually get a higher open rate, reply rate, and book rate and all that type of stuff. You know, for example, the retargeting, obviously there's systems that go into place for that. There's certain ways you want to write the ad copy and whatnot. But this is from a very 30,000 foot view. And this, you know, as I say, from a very 30,000 foot view, this is exactly what I do at Bax Consulting. The exact funnels and processes that we have in place at Bax Consulting that enables us to sign clients from complete outreach, from complete cold. This is it. Literally, this is it. It's the same stuff, as I say, that we go through in the Quantum Agency program. But as I mentioned, it goes a lot more granular and we go a lot more granular in the Quantum Agency program. But overall, this is really it. And there you have it. That is my outbound e-commerce client acquisition method, funnel, whatever it is that you want to call it. You know, it's a bit of a detailed process from the very top of the funnel when you kind of have no idea who the brand is, to qualifying them, to taking them down that funnel, to then at the very end starting to run retargeting ads to them and all that type of stuff. So I hope you found value in this video, and I hope it was actually actionable as well. I know that the most valuable videos that I find are the ones that are actually actionable. It's not just some like, you know, airy fairy idea. So hope it was actionable. And with that being said, I will see you in the next video.